Roger, go for deploy.
No, I saw you on. I heard you on Future Sandwich, and then I think we saw. Did you do any stuff at the TED Talk recently in Melbourne?
I did TED in Melbourne. Yeah.
How did you go?
Smashed it. No,
Yeah.
I think
What was
it went
the topic?
all right.
What do you call the
Well,
topic?
you know, it's really interesting, right? And you can help me here. And you may be responsible for the title that goes up on the TED website if you can help me.
Yeah.
So the story was about how I taught my daughter everything she needs to know about economics in the world by growing food. And what I did was I talked about the idea of growing pizza. So what happened was I said to her, look, do you want to grow some food? And she said, yeah, let's grow pizza. That's what she said. That was her response. I said, you
How
want to
old's
grow
your
pizza? She was 4 or 5 at the time.
Yeah.
And so we did. We grew an end-to-end pizza. I mean, the whole thing, 7-month process.
Really?
And there was all sorts of economics lesson, artificial intelligence, or automation, owning the economic systems. What do you do with your excess materials? How do you sell them? What are the price in the marketplace? The value of human labor, organic versus non-organic. There was like the whole gamut of the world into this process. And I just turned that into a talk. It actually features as the last thing in the book, The Lessons School Forgot. Like how do you, because here's the thing where most people are struggling.
Wait. What about the?
So it needs a title. It needs a title.
The economics of growing a pizza and growing a daughter.
Yeah, but that's a good descriptor.
Yeah.
But we come down to the idea of a billboard. Could you read it driving past on a highway and know what it means? And that back to the old advertising days. And John, who runs TED here in Melbourne, said that the best talk in terms of the number of views has the simplest and most explanatory title. And the one that he mentioned was Sir Ken Robinson's How Schools Kill Creativity. So the title tells you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And even though some clever titles are great, it's really hard to say, would someone know what this is and not misinterpret it? Now, because mine's about pizza, I can't put what pizza can teach you about life because people think it's a foodie one or a foodie talk. It's actually about automation and economics.
Oh yeah, what about what pizza teaches you about economics?
Yeah, so then you've got the whole billboard problem.
Or the economics of growing a pizza.
Yeah, I thought about that was one of the ones I had on the title.
You really got to shorten the.
You got to shorten. My wife came up with a really good one. Yeah,
what's your wife's one?
She came up with outgrow your job, because the whole story is about how you grow and you learn when you own a system, and we were growing a pizza. But more important than the pizza's kind of the surprise to the story, but the people and the idea is really about economics and automation. That's the story. So how do you get that in there? Pizza, the economics of pizza, and all that.
Tough.
It's tough. It's not easy, right?
It's not easy at all.
You have approximately 1 hour
to come up
with 3 or 4 words that define everything. I don't want to put any pressure on you.
Yeah, you have.
But my future income for the next year depends on you doing this.
You're lying because you've straight away heaped it straight on me.
That's how we do it.
So just to introduce who we're talking to Steve Sammartino here today. Steve's come in. Steve is a futurist and an author. He's just given me and Tommy, who's not sitting here right now because he'll be back in the studio in 1 second. He's given us a copy of the Lessons School Forgot, his new book. Steve, why don't we start with how did you become a futurist? Where did it all start? It's not a common thing for people.
Yeah, it's not. People say to me, that's one of those made-up job titles. My rule on futurism is that someone needs to start calling you that before you call yourself that. At least 3 years worth. Right? Yeah. And I actually don't really like the word. The truth is I'm an economist and an entrepreneur. Turns out that I really love technology, and I loved it from the age of 10. I busted out my first lines of code when I was 10 years of age. In QBasic on a 16K RAM computer. RAM, no hard drive. You code something up all afternoon, and then it gets wiped when your mum wants to watch TV, and then you have to recode it the next day.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I was really into tech as a young fellow. And then when I was about 16 or 17, I kind of dropped it, became a teenage man, going out with your friends, all that kind of stuff.
And you went from lines of code to lines of coke at that point.
No, definitely not. I've never had an illegal drug in my life. How nerdy is that?
It's good.
I've never touched it. I'm not into that, mate. I like to stay healthy. And then I studied economics, I was always into entrepreneurship. My first business, I was 12, running an egg farm, organic egg farm, had a clothing company in my teenage years. And then I got back into tech early 2000s. It was post.com bust. When the Web 2.0 thing started to come back on and the tools were a bit better and it was cheaper to run a startup. And then I got really deep back into tech then. And then I just kept doing tech projects. It was more startups and tech. And because I had the business and economics background, I'd mash the two up. And people kept inviting me to write things and talk. And I've been blogging for, 12 or 15 years on tech. And that just kind of morphed. The truth is, that's the truth with a lot of us, right?
Yeah.
You have a skill in one area, overlaps with another area, overlaps with another area. And then next thing you know, you're doing this thing that you hadn't even thought of.
Next thing you know, 50 people have called you a futurist, and now you're a futurist.
That's right. And then what I found was that if I just say I'm a business guy who knows about tech, that the pay's 30% lower. So I just said, embrace, Steve, and get the revenue, right? Because they hear the word futurist, put the price up. I'm like, yes, let's go for it.
That's great. I've always been a closet futurist. I feel like I'm just so fascinated by. I think everybody kind of is. I read and only really about. I think it was probably 3 or 4 years ago. It really got ramped up back into my what I like to focus on and learn about. When I read Michio Kaku, the future of the impossible. No, what was it called? The Physics of the Impossible.
The Physics of the Impossible.
Have you read that book?
I haven't read it, but I'm really a fan of his work. I've watched lots of his docos, and I think he's got some really good 5 and 7 minute bits on YouTube. One of the bits he talks about is the stages of a species, where you first learn to dominate your immediate environment in agriculture, then you dominate the globe, then you dominate the weather, then you dominate multiplanetary. He's got these stages. It's
you harness the power of the sun, the power of the full universe.
Exactly.
That escalates quick, really quick. It's awesome though.
So it's like, he's great. And one of the things that I do more than I guess some of the other futurists is that I try and keep it what I talk about. I can go as deep Star Trek as anyone wants to, but what I tend to do is keep it in sort of a 3 to 5 year time frame, and something you can do today which gets you to the 3 or 5 years. And often I see it, futurists who get out there and they're all whiz bang and a lot of visual wizardry on the screen, but it's like, but that's all nice, but how can I use it?
Yeah.
So there's that balance between where we're going and actually taking some steps that move me closer to that. And that's kind of the art of what I try and do is say, how do I take you from where you are today so you're starting to get momentum and progress to the possible tomorrow? How do I get you at the fork in the road to choose the right path?
Yeah.
And certainly inspire why you should do it and what the future looks like, but also put the responsibility on the readers, the listeners, or whoever to say, well, this stuff isn't just going to happen. Well, it can just happen, but you'll be a passenger, or what can you do to get yourself a bit closer to that?
So you're helping people basically get ready for what's coming.
Yeah, and actually invent it. Not just get ready, invent it. No, not get ready. Not ready. Invent it.
Yeah.
Right? Because someone's going to invent the future, and you can participate, or you can just watch.
That's it. You can coast through. You can coast through someone else's dreams so easily.
Yeah.
Like without yours, you can slip through the cracks and just be a drone your whole life.
That's it.
But if you make your own destination,
and it is true, and it sounds so Tony Robbins. But you know what? Like it's true. If you can read, you got all the skills you need. That's it. Yeah, seriously. That's the only skill that you need. If you can do that, the rest is up to you. Now, I'm not talking about people who have, got challenges or physical illnesses or whatever. And I'm just sort of saying, if you're sort of at a benchmark operational level as a human,
you can learn,
and you're in a country, a Western developed country, it really is up to you. I truly believe that deep down in my heart.
Well, it's funny that you say about you want to help people, inspire them to create the future, because realistically, like a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in today's day and age was invented really by Isaac Asimov as a fantasy 80 years ago. I don't know how. I don't know. I haven't actually read Isaac Asimov. I just know who he is and know what he did. And I've watched iRobot.
There you go.
But basically, like the science fiction of the past becomes a science fact of the future. Someone has to come up with the ideas. Whether it's a futurist, whether it's an author, like the ideas of, hey, imagine this as a way that we could do society, and if it's popular enough and it is possible, do you believe in that? Do you think that your job and the jobs of authors and so forth is creating the future?
Yeah, it is. You've got to imagineer it before you can create it. And so...
Imagineer it.
Yeah, Imagineer.
You should trademark that word.
No, it's not. I think it was used in Disney. They used to call their engineers Imagineers.
Oh,
in
really?
Disney going way back.
Wow.
Yeah, so
right.
it's not mine. And so you definitely can't build anything unless you've built it in your mind first. You can't do anything unless you imagine it first. Even if you go to get milk out of the fridge, your body has to think about it first before you move your arms and legs and go there and grab it. And it's the same with the future. Like we have to say, what if this? And I think that what we do is through science fiction and our imagination of what if, that's what we do first. Because it's impossible to create something you haven't thought of first or designed first or imagined first. So that absolutely comes first. Like everything from the future came from science fiction.
Yeah.
Everything. There's nothing that wasn't imagined first. Like it didn't just happen. I mean, discoveries are different because sometimes you just stumble into those. But putting the pieces together to make something new, it gets a blueprint first and imagine a design, and then it happens. So I'm fundamental believer in we make the things we imagine.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
So, as a futurist, I know we booked this show in last night. So normally I do a little bit of research and so forth. But I thought I can just we can just sit down and have a chat and so forth.
course.
But just to open up like the general conversation, what's got you most excited about the future? Short, middle, long term kind of stuff.
Okay. Short term is the move towards electric transport. I think that's really important for a number of reasons. I think that we've had for a long time large corporations within the fossil fuel industry design government, influence government, Rupert Murdoch and cohort, people wanting to stay in coal, that kind of thing, which is really bad for the environment. And it actually puts an inordinate amount of money into few hands, and money which people didn't create. Like if someone goes out and makes a device, or builds things and makes things, I'm happy for that profit. But when someone like Gina Reinhardt digs it out of the ground and says, here, this is mine, when it really should be our resource, that's not good. So the move towards electric transport, that's really going to change things. It's going to reduce the cost of mobility, which gives people opportunities. It's going to clean the air. And I think it's going to invent the possibilities to reduce house prices because we'll spread out with autonomous transport. So the move from fossil fuels, electric and autonomous transport, that's the most exciting thing, and that's coming quicker than most people think.
Yeah.
That's a 3 to 5 year proposition.
Yep.
I
My
think
mate just got ousted as CEO of one of the major companies in Silicon Valley, actually.
Right.
From Zoox. Do you know Zoox?
Zoox.
Z-O-O-X. Was in all the news. He's a South Melbourne guy.
Right.
Tim Kentley-Clay. He was CEO and founder, and Bill Gates is an investor, and they're autonomous transport for urban environments. And they have basically a pod. It's not a car. It's like a pod. It goes multi-directional. And it's basically like a little office that just drives you to work.
Rolling offices. I mean, actually, I had that in the book as well and in my other one before. But that idea that mobility gets increased and it reduces the cost of mobility, because I think we're living through a mobility revolution, not a digital revolution. Well, it's mobility of ideas, it's mobility of transportation, it's mobility of energy, because energy moves around now in batteries. It's mobility of finance through cryptocurrencies. So everything's
Mobility
going from a
is
centralization to actually a decentralized tools of technology, which increase the mobility of people, money, assets, transport, ideas. That's what it is. So it's a mobility revolution where all of these devices come together and change us from a centralized, city-based factory mentality to a distributed, autonomous world where we are highly mobile people. So that's the really exciting bit for me is fossil fuels, transportation, and I think next after that is really the blockchain and the breaking down of our current financial systems, which are again centralized, which has a whole lot of bad stuff that goes with it.
Can I just take it back? What do you mean by highly mobile? That interests me because I live far out of the city.
Yeah, right. And I'm about to move far out of the city. For me, what I mean highly mobile is, for the first time in history, the tools of production and where the work is needed can be separated. So I'll break this down in 4 words. If we look at the history of human labour, 4 words can define us as a species. The first word is spear. That's the hunter and gatherer, right? That's your tool, right? Flint, stone tools,
bow and arrow.
That's what we do, right? And so,
nunchuckers,
right? Where do you want to eat tomorrow? Follow the herd, right?
Yeah,
nunchucks. I love that. I've just got nunchucks in my head, and then I've just flashed back to Fist of Fury, Bruce Lee. No, don't be sorry. Do not be sorry. That is the best moment of today, right? That's fantastic. And so it's mobility of the tools we're hunter and gatherer. When the next word is seed. All right, so spear to seed. Seed is agriculture, civilized communities, starting to master our little areas of where we live. After that, industrialization is spanner. So spear, seed, spanner. Spanner's when we move to the city. It's concrete, it's steel. That's the area you and I were born into. And that's the era of the last 200 years, 300 years of industrialization.
I know what the last one's going to be.
Go, what is it?
Silicon.
You got it. Give me that fisty bump of goodness.
Ball and
we did a swing. Swing.
Ball and socket.
Ball and socket. I love that we got there. The ball and socket's perfect. It's perfect.
How did you know?
It's the next revolution.
It's the next revolution. Now, here's what's different about
I
silicon.
read the book. No, I didn't read it.
Smart man.
Here's what's different about silicon is that for the first time in history, labor and location can be separate. That's never, ever happened. Look back to those other tools. Hasn't happened. And so what that means is that most of our work is informational now, and that's only going to increase. Even when we build physical things, it will be the information that creates them. 3D printing is the classic example. Information, ones and zeros, becomes atoms, bits into atoms. Right? Digital design, all those kind of things. And so you'll have desktop manufacturing in the future. And because silicon means we can live anywhere, this is silicon, the cameras are silicon, glass. We're moving to a glass and electric economy. That means that I can live down the coast where the waves are and we can go surfing, right? Because that's what life's all about, right?
Yep.
And I can work anywhere because the work can border hop with ones and zeros, which fly through the sky, right? So, but what happens is that we haven't realised this yet. We've got a government that wants jobs and growth, jobs and growth bingo. And they want everyone to be in a big city and all that, and so we can all have traffic jams. It doesn't make any sense. The reason we drive to the filing cabinets filled with humans, otherwise known as high-rise buildings, stupid. Get there, go, hi Barb, hi Mary, bye Barb, bye Mary, and go home. It's crazy in a traffic jam. Why? Yeah, we need to get together. We're together today, but we just came together, non-traffic jam time, lunchtime, here we are chatting. We've got the socialisation. We're working together, separate organisations. You don't have to have everyone in the one building who all work together.
My whole team's abroad.
Exactly. And that's what the future is, right? And if governments were smart, they'd be investing in a regional renaissance, saying you can work from anywhere now. If companies that were smart, it's like, yeah, you get to work from anywhere. And people say, oh, it's not possible. It's bullshit. That's control. That's the control economy. Look at WordPress. Run 24% of the internet, don't have an office.
Yeah.
Anyone who says it isn't possible is because their DNA and their leaders don't want it to be possible.
Yeah.
It's absolute bullshit.
They're
Not
old
proof
school.
of it. You're proof of it.
Yeah.
So that for me is super exciting.
I read a really good book called Remote by the guys at 37 Signals. They built Basecamp, the online app.
Another great example.
Yeah, and they talked about how there is like an underground trend that is going to people are happier and work better from remote or semi-remote basis.
Yeah,
so
or that hybrid kind of model where you come in, connect when you need to, and then go off.
That's right.
Like
maybe like 2 days a week coming to the office for if you do need to have some meetings and some FaceTime or whatever, and then the rest of the time you can be, you can have your dog around you, you're going to be with your friends and family or whatever, and then the one thing with this book that I thought was cool, which you might be able to vibe on, Steve, is like then when everyone's not just packed into an office and everyone's, isn't Mary a great employee? She was here till 8 o'clock last night.
Yeah.
Like that's irrelevant. What did she do till 8 o'clock? Like it turns the whole, if you're a good employee, from how many hours do you work? I know that what you produce is still valued, obviously. People still say that.
Quality.
Output is key.
Output.
Yeah, quality of work for sure.
Yeah, but
and output, not just see hours and output. There's this real delineation there. I mean, and so I've presented this to, I've spoken to 300 companies, big Fortune 500 companies in the last couple of years, right, around the world in 14 countries. And so often they say, oh, look, it just couldn't work. Like, I need to see what they're doing. You know what my answer is? I said, if you need to see what people are doing to know what their output is, then I would ask you, why are you employing that person? Because if you can't tell if they're doing their work unless you're watching them, you don't really know what their job is. And I would argue that they shouldn't be there.
yeah.
That's the number one thing. And right, and that is a fair call. If you have to watch over them, or you treat them like babies, you're going to get, you're not treating them like adults. There should be clear tasks that are output. I mean, if you're on a factory line, the task is clear. Did you put the bolt in the car door or not? And it should be the same with informational work. Just when I employ people who are freelancers do work for me, I'm like, I need this thing done by Friday, and what's the cost? And they give me the cost. I say, fine. I don't care if it took them 1 minute or 20 hours. I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And if you're there, you're wanting to watch over people, for me, I just can't swallow it, and I just think it's legacy thinking. And this whole idea of being able to separate ourselves, it's like you could overcome things like housing affordability crisis.
Yeah.
I was at Phillip Island this week, which for listeners and viewers is a couple of hours away from Melbourne, beautiful coastal region, little island.
Great spot.
And I was saying to the guys down there, to attract people here, the cost of living is, that the housing affordability there, what you get is off the scale. Walking to a close beach, beautiful. You can get to the city
Similar
pretty
to where
easy.
Tommy lives.
Whereabouts are you,
Kinda.
Tommy?
Brimley.
I know Brimley real well. I got a farm down near Ocean Grove.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the sand dunes there in a nice little log cabin.
I know the spot, mate. I know all the stories about Brimley sand dunes. Don't you worry about that.
There's a lot, actually.
I've heard that.
I've heard
Couple
a
of
lot.
sessions down on the
surf around
dunes
there
as a
when
young
it's
lad
big,
I
like-
see.
Yeah,
I
right.
surf around there when it's big at the Point Impossible, and if it's
Oh,
too
nice.
big for
I
me.
live pretty much right at Point Impossible. We're
beautiful
one of the
spot.
closest houses to it.
Oh, right. Love
Yeah.
it. And so, the idea of saying, well, if you wanted to get a regional renaissance, you should build, co-working space for companies to split their people up, people from big corporations. Why wouldn't you have your people distributed? Because then what? They're going to learn new ideas from different people in different environments because they've got a real world exposure, not a monoculture.
Yep.
And these regional areas, I said, you should build the world's first virtual reality meeting room. That'll go global in news, and just how all your residents come in here for their virtual meetings. Have a rolling office autonomous bus that goes to the city for the people who need to have their meetings.
That's cool. Imagine the locations people would be
that's what I'm
phoning in
saying.
from.
So here's what the government should do. We're going to put in 50 amazing co-working spaces, or help entrepreneurs like those who run the Commons to get some funding behind doing it. We're going to encourage large corporations to let their people live from where they want to live, to bring the housing prices down, and that'll have the impact of lowering housing prices in the city and booming it a little bit, and then keep money out in the regional areas. We're going to have a regional renaissance. All we need is the will to do it and the right people proposing these ideas, right? That's where we should be investing our infrastructure. And then here's what happens. You do cool things like that, then you've got an export product. Oh, we've got this great model here in Australia where we can show you how to build or sell our designs for your virtual reality offices and your rolling offices to the city and all of this kind of cool. That's the thinking we need.
That sounds awesome. Sounds like the utopia we were talking about in the last episode.
Yeah, that's right. And doing business from a co-working space is better for business anyway.
Of
like you
course
say,
it
it's
is.
way more collaborative. I've got so many ideas and so many friends and so many contacts and so many references or whatever from people that are floating around here, rather than if I had, all the same thing getting rammed down your throat all day, every day, going into your own personal office that you're for the one company kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it's great. And I think the rolling offices thing, like imagine when we have an extra, because people spend on average
A day a week, more than a day a week.
In the car? Yeah, that's right.
In Australia, it's about 8-point-something hours if you're a city worker. Now, of course, there's delineations in the cohort of who you measure, but those who work in the city, the average is, it's like 8-and-something hours a week in the car. That's an entire work day.
Yeah.
I think I'm spending around that much when I'm working. I try not to work, but when I am, it's mostly in the city at the moment, and driving in traffic absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
Don't you it's like choose your times?
Yeah, 100%. I do, for sure. I know when to come in, when not to. I own my own business, so I had that worked out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I use my time wisely in the car. I listen to audiobooks.
Yeah, same. And make calls and speak to people.
I'm productive.
Yeah,
it's always productive
For me,
time
it is too,
regardless.
and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's not enjoyable when you're in traffic. There's something about it. The car has to move fast.
You know,
If you have to do it every day, though, it can be a drain up. But it's like if you can break it up with a day here or there, and if you could work remotely from home, that's all you would need would be that every third day have a day at home, and it doesn't
Exactly
feel
what I
like
do.
it's every day.
Yeah, and it's fine. It's actually enjoyable. Oh, cool, I'm going into the city that day.
Yeah,
And you
exactly.
you plan for it, you know about it, and it's cool.
Exactly.
It's funny you say about driving fast is okay, driving traffic, because I went and picked my mum up from the airport yesterday. I got rid of my car, so I don't drive anymore. Because I live in Port Melbourne, work in South Melbourne. Gym's 5 minutes down the road. Uber, car, bike,
transport,
whatever. Yeah, it's great. But I went and picked mum up from the airport, and oh my fucking... So I went to the regular pickup section, and she'd gotten Tiger, and I didn't know because my phone had died.
Oh,
so
no.
I went to the regular pickup section. I called her from someone else's phone. She's like, I'm in the other section. I'm like, fucking hell. So I've driven around, and it took me about like 45 minutes because I took about 2 wrong turns to get to the Tiger section in just horrible traffic, people tooting, people yelling out, and it ruined my day.
It's not good energy.
Dude,
Everyone's angry. It's terrible energy in there. It's the worst. I can feel it straight away.
Yes.
I feel it when I drive into the city sometimes.
Yeah.
I just know when it's going to be a bad day.
And imagine, though, if that negative energy, because we've got clever about what silicon provides, we really started to really plan this out. Like, it actually is going to change people's demeanour.
Yeah.
Like, hanging out with you guys, like we've been together, 20 minutes or whatever now. As soon as I walked in, I felt something, right?
Yeah, good blokes.
And I reckon,
Good looking blokes too. You nearly jacked him off straight
look at this cat. I'm
Opens
like,
the door and nearly
I need
just
to
jumps
hang
on
with
Tommy.
this cat. I just want to have beers and just.
I'm like, what's wrong with my beard? He goes, oh, you're going to
Nah, but he had
two
that,
colours.
you know what he's got? He's got the blended colours
two
and all
colours.
of that. I mean, he's got the
best.
whole stick and the glass and the colour. Look at that, right? Yeah, it's pro level. But like, so when I worked in corporate for a lot of years. You just. I know this sounds crazy. It sounds all zen and all that, but it's like you sense it in your skin. There's just this negativity. There's this.
Yeah.
There's this control element, and then people get the tension, and people losing their shit over a spreadsheet that doesn't matter, right? It's
Yeah.
like no one is saving lives, dude. At one point, I'm embarrassed to say, I worked at Kraft Foods selling like processed cheese. Like that's how low my life got, if you want to know, right? And the amount of stress.
Futurist sounds a lot better than
Yeah, the
cheese salesman. Cheese pusher.
processed cheese marketer salesperson, right? Dude, people would lose their shit over like, the volume of cheese in this market and the market share. Or like what? Like, and so it's one day you just wake up in a cold sweat at 3 a.m. and go, is this what this is?
It's got to be more to life. Yeah.
I remember the day I quit, right? I'd been working at Kraft Foods for about 5 years, and in this is 15 so years ago, to work at a consumer goods company was reputable for corporate sort of, and I'd done the rounds in all those big companies. I worked at a brewery once, that was much, but he had a
That'd
tap.
be awesome.
We had a tap at the end of our cubicle where you could
That's
pour beers.
fantastic.
That was rad. Yeah, that was at
that's
CUB back in the day. They had a bar, was ridiculous food, good, all that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And really good footy tickets, but. I remember the day I left. One day, it was a Thursday. I said, I'm done. Right, and I went into the guy. I said, I'm leaving here. This is my thing. He said, you got to give 4 weeks notice because that's in your policy. So like that, right? And I said, yeah, Monday will come and I won't be here. And he said, you have to turn up. I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't send me to jail for that one. So
definitely.
good luck with all the cheese and stuff. And I was out.
Wow.
I hope you have a good
It was
day,
one
mate.
of the great moments in my
Yeah,
life. A
that's-
non-financial
sounds
moment. In fact, the
satisfactory.
opposite, right? There was
Yeah.
just something so liberating.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
100%.
Back to how many, back to people changing it up and being able to work remotely and things
Yes.
like that. I have friends that do that. I've got friends in the sky, I skydive, so I've got friends that'll be
You're
doing.
crazy. You get out of Bowen Heads there.
You just got 20%
I jump at
cooler again,
Torquay
didn't you?
and Bowen Heads.
Mate, the cool levels are just going up. I hope you make
Mate, I
a
do
comeback.
fuck all.
If this is
I
a
do
footy
fuck
match, you're 8 goals behind right now. It's like,
Hey,
it's
where are
going.
you? You're not even on the
It's
field.
actually
Mate,
his
I'm
podcast.
commentating.
No,
Look,
you're
I've
on
got
the
the
start.
commentators thing on.
You do a bit of Bruce McAvaney about you.
I don't know if that's good or
Well
bad.
played. No, that's fantastic. Bruce is
No,
great.
he came in and
Bruce is
started
legend.
commentating the F1 Grand Prix as soon as he sat
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fantastic.
down. But sorry, where were we?
No, so I've got a lot of friends that do that. In between skydives, they'll be on super important business calls, and it's like before they did that, they were doing the cubicle lifestyle, and I knew them when they were doing that, and they were totally unhappy. Now I've got friends that have changed their whole life and actually will go into it. I have a friend that took a job, and it was the standard job in the cubicle job. And he is really good at his job. And after about 3 weeks in there, he went into them and approached them and said, all right, I'm going to do this much work. I've already done this much, but I want this amount of time off. And I'm going to do work from here, 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 and here. Laid it out to them, and they all just went, yeah, fine, fantastic. And he's been happy ever since.
love that.
That's
You know,
great.
So happy. But he's a real go-getter. It's my
Yeah.
friend Simon Colmer. Shout out to Simon Colmer. He's an
Simo,
absolute
hashtag
lord.
Simo, hashtag Simo.
Absolute lord.
You know what though? I don't think enough people have enough courage to
No,
do that,
he's
right? Because
he
we're
does.
actually taught not to be courageous,
Definitely.
right? Because you make a mistake, it's red pen. Whatever you do, don't. These are the rules. Follow
Yep.
it. Learn it. And courage to do the stuff. And I wish I had. I don't have it in a lot of areas. In some areas, I found it.
Yeah.
But just to have the courage to say, no, that doesn't suit me. This is what I want. And then if it doesn't, leave. Like the one thing about courage is you've got to be prepared to walk away, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You've got to be prepared to walk away. And I don't reckon unless you're prepared to walk away from something, you'll never actually have the courage to really go, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be prepared to walk away. And that takes a bit of courage. And the number one reason I think most people don't have the courage is that we build around us a financial infrastructure that has to be served.
100%. Job security.
Yeah.
Job security, but it's not job security.
No, but-
it's stuffed security because I've
Yes.
got the TV, and I've got
need
the
the job
Foxtel
security
thing, and
because
I've got my
shit.
phone monthly
Yeah.
subscription, and I've got the rent, and I've got the whatever.
100%.
People need to learn the number one skill, I reckon, before you can find that and have that courage, because not everyone's earning the big coin or is the greatest at what they do. Often we do a pretty okay job because, not many jobs are, it's the world we live in.
Yeah.
But if we can de-gear our lives, de-gearing, the idea of gearing, like where you gear an investment. Gearing, it's the idea of you go into debt so that something grows in value.
Yeah.
Well, what we do
Like
is
negative gearing, positive gearing.
Yeah, negative gearing, positive gearing. But what we do is if we earn this much, about that much of it is geared. So subscriptions, cost, electricity, rent, whatever, and car, all of that stuff. If you can walk away and not have any expenses and live really skinny, if you can do that, then you have a chance at pushing for the lifestyle you really want. But if you can't de-gear your life, you can never do it. You're just on that treadmill. And there's one great hack to do it. Imagine if you could save 50% of what you earned. Do you reckon that's possible? 50%. Let's say you're earning $100 a week. Could you live on 50? Or you're earning $1,000 a week. Could you live on 500? Could you? It might be hard, but this is a really interesting question because I tell you what, if you can do that for 1 year, at the end of that year, you've got a year to try and find the real thing you want to do that'll make you happy and replace that income.
Yeah.
If you can live on 50% of what you earn, you only have to work 1 year into, and every year off, you could try something new that you always want to try. I mean, it's an interesting idea,
Definitely.
isn't
You
it?
could
It's a
actually do
really
it.
interesting
Definitely.
You
idea.
can actually do it too.
That's what I did. That's how I got out.
Yeah, because there's a level that we get to where we'll always, so if we earn X amount, we have X amount in the bank, we're always just going to have enough money to cover our bills, just going to have enough money to keep our bill. I always think when I was getting AdventureFit off the ground, my company, I was always like, how do I always just sneak through when I'm going through these tough periods? And it's because you basically spend what you have.
You do.
And you
Yeah.
always
You make
always
it
funnel
happen.
into that last little, you get through that last little squeeze past that last little section. You're like, oh, fuck, I've done it again. But it's because that's why that book, Profit First, it's a business book and it talks about paying yourself first.
Yeah, that's a great thing. That's in here too. The idea of it's like that goes there. That money does not even exist.
Yeah.
When I earn, I've
and then
always
you just
done
deal
that.
with the money that you've got because you've already paid yourself. You've kept the business. You've paid yourself. You've put money towards the business, and then you do exactly the same thing with the money that you've got, and you end up in the same position. You'll probably be tight, squeeze it through that last little door, whatever. But you haven't built the more infrastructure around you,
You haven't
business
built
wise,
the stuff
personal
and
wise,
cost of living.
Yep.
We all fall into the pay rise trap because when you first work, you earn a bit, you think, oh, I'll buy that shirt. Van Houston, it's $30, it's fine. Then the next thing you know, you're buying an Oxford shirt, and
Ralph
then after
Paulos.
that, and then it's Ralph Paulos, and then it's a Boss Hugo Boss. It sneaks up on people.
Yeah.
You're just happy to get your first car that drives because you don't have to ride your bike. You're just so stoked to have a car. And you go, oh, this car's not really good enough. I need to upgrade and all that. And
You see someone driving something a little bit better and you're like, kind of nice
do
over
it.
there.
My car's
Looks
10
good
years
in that
old.
car,
My
yeah.
car's embarrassingly old.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's like, no way, man. I'd rather put that money into, sort of an insurance policy for my future than I don't have to drive around my ego.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and that future, this book here, one of the things I wanted to do was, there's the future of the technology, but what's the future of you? What is the future of you? People don't plan their futures. We're all futurists, right? We were talking, we're all futurists. We're looking at what are the tools, what are the changes, what's happening in society, where do I fit in, how can I create value? That's what we're all doing. So we're all doing it to some sort of scale. What I do is more like an industrial businessy scale and just sell that skill. But we're all futurists and we need to, just manage our own future. And one of the core disciplines is you got to spend less than you earn. That's the formula for happiness. Spend less than you earn. That's the formula for happiness.
Yeah.
Financial stress and pressure. And the government wants you to spend money. I've never seen an ad ever that says, save your money. I've never seen one.
The whole, our society wants you to spend money.
Of course they do.
Look around. It's disgusting. Look around. Go out that window there and look at the city.
It's
just all advertising all day, every second of the day.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. It's junk values. But it's where we are right now, so we
The consumer lifestyle is consuming us.
Yeah, that's right. But obviously the more people that have these conversations, someday it might.
It's the
it might
Tyler
change.
Durden from Fight Club. The things you own end up owning you. But
Yeah.
do whatever
Yeah.
you please, man. That's
Yeah,
what
That's a different American accent too. He's got
Yeah.
more. He's got
Yeah.
more in the repertoire.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
my Tyler. That was my
That's a
Tyler. I
good
spat then.
Tyler.
I spat. Did you like that? Sorry.
didn't see.
If that was me
You just wanted to
germaphobe,
rub
I'd
his
leave
arm,
the
I
room.
missed it.
Like,
You just wanted to rub his
yeah. No, I didn't want to rub his up.
Oh, sorry.
So sorry, I spat on your face.
Oh shit. Had a mate who was super loose when we were growing up. We're like 15 years old, and
You're a Melbourne boy?
yeah, Peninsula, Moynes Peninsula.
Peninsula boy, nice.
Yeah, St Andrews Beach at Ryback Beach
Mate, I
area.
fucking know it inside out, mate.
Yeah.
Mate, I'd love to go at a little bit of haystacks action for... Mate, you a surfer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I grew up Ryback Beach, so I surfed like all through St Andrews. Used to go over the Western Port a bit, but. So my mate Sabes, we had like a little gang of 5, all the boys, and we were the St Andrews 5. Tommy remembers.
Fucking rough, eh?
And my mate Sabes used to always, he was like the drunk guy. Like we were all the drunk guys, but he was like the extreme, you know?
Mate, we used to... There was a bad drinking culture. Mate, growing up back in the day, this has probably been recorded, but drinking culture was young when I was growing up, especially in the surfing circles.
For me, 100%.
Mate, 14 years of age, we were on it.
I grew up in pubs. I was
Yeah, I
drinking
got
beers
used-
when
did
I
I-
was.
did I
I
get
was
used-
dad's
beers
lap at
14,
the
I
age of
reckon.
about 7. I was always allowed to sip my dad's beer at
me
any
too, me
age.
too.
Have a sip, and then that was it.
Yeah.
But then drinking with my dad was probably around 15.
Yeah, me, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Mate. Like, we would sneak one at the parties and that, but by the time I was 15, at family functions, I'd
Oh,
be drinking,
for
mate.
sure.
Dude, this is like... And now I'm
100%.
thinking, like... My brain could have been really good if I didn't ruin it. As a like, I could have like maybe achieved something.
Yeah. But what about the stuff as a kid? I used to, the first or second time I got drunk,
So we've got off dock though.
we have got off dock, but I drank a bottle of Jack Daniels.
What?
Like not all by myself, but like I bought it and me and like a mate shared it. Like that was like, like
That's like, that's what you do.
That's crazy. That's ridiculous. That'll
I
kill
could
you.
not do that now.
No
I'm
way.
a terrible drinker.
Now, if I have more than one, I've got a hangover. Like if I
Yeah,
have
I'm
two,
pissed
I can
off
have
one.
a glass of wine. If I have two, I have a hangover the next day.
Yep.
Beer, I can have a few more before a hangover, but the wine, two glasses of wine, I'll have a hangover.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much any more than one drink, and I'm pretty tipsy.
Yeah, I'm
Now.
drunk
I
off
don't
on
drink
beer.
much now.
I'm definitely drunk off on beer. Yeah, well, I never drink.
Yeah.
Like,
What are you coming in at? 70 kilos?
60.
60. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to go 60 because I'm 67.
Yeah.
I'm a bit thicker than you.
Yeah, I'm hopefully, my metabolism slows down at some point.
No, you don't
and
know.
I can
because
because
with surfing, your pop up really matters. Having your
True.
weight, your pop up. That's the
True.
one thing I notice is that if I even put on a few kilos, my pop up slows
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
It's
you're
not that
sluggish in
I'm
the water.
fine when I'm on the wave, but just the pop up. That's
Yeah.
you've got to stay
Interesting.
skinny, mate.
Paddling's
Got to
hard.
be your
Can't
friend.
read burpees.
Paddling gets way
Got
harder.
to do the
Yeah, I
burpees.
know.
But my dad was running pubs when I was growing up, so I was pulling beers at the age of 15.
No way.
Yeah,
I
all
love
the
that.
time.
I love that. Just get
Pulling
on
beers
pulling the beers. I
constantly.
love that.
Well,
15.
whenever Dad would shut the pub down, he would have knockoffs with all the staff, and then I'd just start pulling beers for
you
everyone
on
while
the
they'd be
Bellarine
smoking
Peninsula?
ciggies at the bar. And
I love that. Were you on the Bellarine Peninsula?
no, this was down. Well, that was at Apollo Bay.
Oh,
my
you
dad
down
used to run
there.
the pub at Apollo
Oh,
Bay,
right,
but
yeah.
my dad used to be the president of the Mentone Footy Club, so I was
really?
the glassy. So like
There you go.
every Saturday night it was dollar pots.
Yeah.
and I used to.
Future Fit Radio. What's going on, mate? And now I'm getting the truth.
I remember being so small that like it would get to a certain point in the night where the cigarette smoke inside would get to my height,
Oh, right,
and then I'd go sleep in the car because it was disgusting. Whereas
Oh,
like I'd
wow.
spend
You're
all
walking through
night,
the clouds.
I'd spend all night getting below the smoke. Then it would catch me, and I'd go to sleep in the car.
See,
I
kids
couldn't
don't know
handle
when
like
they grow
hate
up.
cigarettes.
I don't know how we're alive. Like, you know, too, I was
disgusting,
one
isn't
of 4 kids. It's like, just get out there, kids, all right. And you just, after school, grade 2, see your mum, be back for dinner.
Oh.
She wouldn't even know where we
Yeah.
were, out on our bikes doing whatever.
Gone. Yeah.
My kids have
Roof
not
rocking
been
houses.
Yeah.
more than 10
Tagging
metres
people.
away from me and
Yeah.
my wife ever
Definitely.
in their entire lives. They're within 10 metres
Never
of
even
us.
thrown a rock, the poor bastards.
Mate, they've got a geofence. They've got a geofence.
Anyway, the reason I got called Doc was because my mate used to snap his cigarettes, and I fixed them for him one time.
There you go.
And he said, he looked at it and he said, "You're like the cigarette doctor. I'm
Doc,
call you
there you go.
I'm going to call you
Wow.
the cigarette
I've
doctor."
this
never
is
heard
all-
that story.
Yeah, and I said,
That's
to him-
awesome. I've often wondered.
But Doc's
I said-
just a good word.
I
Doc
said-
is a great word.
Yeah, I said to him,
Doc's
he goes,
good.
"I'm going to call you the cigarette doctor from now on." I said, "No, you're not. That's the shittest nickname ever." And then he just called me the doctor. So he'd break his cigarettes and he'd be 100 metres away from me in this big, bush party or whatever. And he'd be like, I'm looking for the doctor. Take me to the doc. And I'd be like, "Yo, Sabes over here." So I became the
That's
doc.
hilarious.
But,
wow, the doc.
Steve, let's get into
Let's
some.
go.
Let's
Let's
get into
go.
some more futurist stuff. And so I've heard one of the things that I talked about. One of the most topical things at the moment is obviously employment, the future of our jobs. What do we do there? And we spoke about this on our last podcast, actually, which was quite cool with Gordon Young. And I'm keen to hear your thoughts. Obviously, it's coming. There's a huge revolution in the way that we do. We employ people or things. So where do you think it's heading, and what do you think we do about it?
All right. So I'm going to tell a few stories. I really want to go through the economics of what they call structural unemployment. Mm-hmm. So this is well studied, and I'm actually really surprised that from reputable forums like the World Economic Forum, they're talking about jobs going away and 70% of jobs being gone by 2020. You've read all the reports, right? Mm-hmm. World Economic Forum. A week doesn't go by without a report.
Yeah.
It's actually foolish and uneducated, most of this. And so I'll give a couple of stories. First, I'll talk about the economics of automation replacing jobs. First thing is, this has happened before. It's not a new thing. Mm-hmm. It's happened before. So before the Industrial Revolution, 90% of people worked on farms. It's now less than 1% work in direct agriculture. 1%, less than 1%. Right? We actually create 9 times as much food as humans need if you go paddock to plate. Most of it gets wasted in processing, distribution, ullage, supermarkets,
what we actually
off
need.
carts, right? And yes, there are people who don't have food, but that's a distribution thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so put that aside. So, and we all found new things to do, right? Like, can you even imagine the idea of a yoga instructor? No, seriously. Like,
Yep.
Here's another one I do. Imagine you had a DeLorean and you went back 300 years and you worked in the gym. You're a gym instructor. We talked about you going to the gym today. You said to someone, they said, well, what do you do in the future 300 years now? Well, I'm a gym instructor. Oh, what's a gym? Oh, it's a gym's a place where you go to work out. Oh, you mean work? No. It's a gym. Yeah, but you just said work out. What do you mean work? Oh, you lift up heavy things. Oh, yeah, you're working, right? You're lifting things. No. You're working out. Well, what are you lifting these things for? Where do you put them? We just lift them up and down. What do you mean you lift them up and down? Well, just to give our bodies a turn. What do you mean give your bodies a turn? Don't you do that at work? No, we don't do that at work. What do you do at work? What do you use? Just our eyes and our fingers. we don't
hilarious.
use anything else, right?
Yep.
Oh, right.
I've never
Tell
heard
that
it put
person
like
about
that.
They can't conceptualize it.
Yeah.
Of course they can't, because physical labour is work and everyone does physical labour and that's it. Mm-hmm. There's like 5 people who work at universities and are lawyers. The 5 people you don't know who live in England somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? And so everyone does that. Now think about all the things that live around the gym. Like all of the things, the weights, the machinery, spandex, right? Weight gloves, because you don't want to get calluses, so you got to have weight gloves. There's all these things that we invent. So there's always going to be new jobs. Yes, old ones drop out.
Totally
but you know
agree.
what? Like tram conductors, Melbourne. Tram conductors in the late 80s, we had tram conductors. Life went on. The tram conductors found something new to do.
Yeah.
The bus drivers and the truck drivers will find
Horse
something
and cart
new to do.
blokes probably hated the fact the car came out, and then they probably found another job.
And there are so many stories in history of jobs being replaced. What hasn't happened before is so much change so quickly. So in all probability, the structural change will happen quicker and there will be people who are displaced. Here's one thing I know for sure. There's enough money right now in the world to help re-educate for free, the government, through taking taxes, to give them new opportunities and to invest in new industries, some which we've already spoken about today, autonomous, cars, rolling offices and whatever. They were just like a couple of ideas off the cuff. But the economics of it is really interesting. When automation happens, there's a really simple economic process. So if something costs this much and it gets automated, the only reason you would automate it would be to what?
Make more money.
Yeah, and how do you make more money? By making
Let people work less.
the cost of production lower. Now, if the cost of production is lower, right, and the product used to cost this much to make and then it costs that much to make, you're either going to reduce the price, right, which will happen if there's competition. The price gets reduced because the cost of production goes lower, right? And then that money goes somewhere else. So that money, you would spend $300 on something, that thing might only be $200. So where does that $100 go? It goes to a gym membership. This is the economics that people don't understand. Now, if automation happens and the prices don't come down, then what we have is a monopoly, and that's an antitrust violation, and the government needs to split up those companies. Does that make sense? This is hardcore economics here, but basically, if you automate something, the cost of production goes lower. Because the cost of production goes lower, all those competing in those areas also reduce their prices to compete. If the prices don't go down, it means you've got a monopoly.
So like Amazon, why don't they break up Amazon?
Well, they should.
Right.
Absolutely, they should.
'Cause that's a pretty
That's
good
the classic example.
Classic
Now,
example of
I
that.
will give you a reason why these tech companies are getting away with it after this, but I just really want to break down that idea of the cost of production goes down and that money goes somewhere else. Once money's in an economy, it never leaves. It just changes places.
Yeah.
So when we were growing up in 1990, we might have bought a CD for $30. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Sanity.
Sanity. Go to Sanity,
Of course.
buy your
President's
CD,
United States of
and
America.
you're probably going to get Faith No More, the epic album.
Yep.
Right. You're going to get that, the real thing.
Yeah.
Right, if it's 1992, then maybe it's a little bit of Kurt Cobain and Nirvana.
Definitely.
Because we've all got good taste in music here. Right? Today, what happens with that $30? So the CD doesn't get bought,
Nah.
but you might have a Spotify.
Yep.
That's $10.
Yeah.
Data on your phone, that's another 10, and who knows where the other 10 goes.
Mm-hmm.
The money didn't leave the economy, it just changed places.
Yeah.
Now, the lesson for humans is you got to look at the money. If you follow the money, you'll see if where you are won't be needed in the future. Now, when the money changes places, you got to change places too. And when the money goes over there, you got to pivot your skills and say, what skills have I got and how can I adapt them? How can I adapt my skills so that they become future-proof and move on to the next realm? You know, like a designer who might have been good with a pen back in the day doing design and blueprints and everything had to go, I'm going to learn about Photoshop and get that design going. And then I'm going to learn a little bit about HTML and do web design or small screen design. It's incumbent upon us to learn the skills, but the money doesn't leave the economy. It just changes places. And so then the government has to come in on top and say, I'm going to help you learn these skills because that industry's going away. And then they need to tax the government, tax the big corporations.
that are making all
Now,
the more money.
here's the reason why big companies, the monopolists of Facebook, Amazon and Google don't get antitrust violations against them because they've got a real trick that they've done. So Google is in, what business is Google in?
Information.
Selling information.
Selling information, right. But they actually claim that they're in the advertising business. So they've got 90% of search, which is an antitrust violation. 90%, right? But they've only got 15% of advertising revenue. So when the government says, oh, you're violating antitrust, they said, how can we be? Our market share is only 15%. Because their market share is related to where their revenue falls. And what these technology companies have done is because they give away their product, they say our product's free. How can we be bad for consumers? Aren't low prices great? But what they do is they give away something, get a monopoly power, and then sell the data and the externalities, right? So that's where you have that antitrust violation. And the other thing with multinational tax avoidance, really simple way to solve it. And I think the government know how to solve it and just don't do it because people in government want to get a board on that company, right? They want to get their job on the board and their 300,000 and this is all very Machiavellian of me, but I do believe that they make decisions to self-serve themselves once they leave government. Really easy way to get any multinational to pay tax. You just say, hi, how you going? I've got this new tax law. It's like land tax. What we do is we assess the value of your company, right? And we give you a 5% revenue tax each year. Congratulations, you're my newest taxpayer. If you let them tax you on profit, they'll find a way to move it around. And what they do is the classic one is the brand is owned by this company in a low tax market and we have to pay licensing revenue from ourselves to use that brand here, and that's how they get away with it. Or the revenue lands in Singapore where the tax rates are 11%. Australian government, if they had courage, would say, yeah, guess what? We've got this new rule. We value your business in Australia at $5 billion, so we want $500 million a year from you in tax or $1 billion a year in tax. That's it. Congratulations. That's the number. And they also, oh, we'll shut down. They won't shut down.
Yeah.
I've worked for big companies. They take every profit that's there, every cent.
For sure.
So that's how you get around it. Real easy. And guess where that money goes? To educate people who used to be truck drivers to learn something new.
So it would be fair to say.
So that was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, it's good though.
It was good. So it'd be fair to say that you're very positive on the fact that even with all this automation, that we'll be totally fine.
Could never be more positive. Here's why. For the first time in human history, anyone can learn anything and mostly for free. That has never, ever happened in the history of humanity. You want to learn to make carved furniture, get onto YouTube. There's a guy there teaching you. You want to learn how to code, there's a zillion free courses on how to do it.
It's just like art. We didn't have, art and science weren't a thing before the Industrial Revolution, really.
Of course they were.
Because we had more time to be specialists in things. So we'll probably just have more artists and more scientists and more thinkers and more.
That's right.
And
which e-commerce. Is cool. You used to have to hope that 1,000 customers lived close enough to you to sell whatever it was you made. Well, now your customers can be all around the world. One thing that's really interesting is that there's a lot of old retro industries that are making a comeback because what was too niche to live in one city or one location now actually can become a global distributed niche where it's made here.
Yeah, definitely.
But instead of having 2,000 customers you've got to hope that they live within 100 kilometres of you. Yeah. You can say, no, well, I've got 1,000 customers, but one's in South Dakota and, one's in Sicily and one's in whatever, right? We need to teach people this. People haven't really realised yet. Well, they haven't realised the opportunity to sell, to e-commerce, to have a global market, to re-educate yourself, that these things aren't hard to learn. I always tell people the hardest thing a computer has ever learned is what we call natural language processing. That's the ability of a computer to speak back with you and converse with a computer. It's the top of the hierarchy of machine learning. It's the number one most difficult thing we've ever done. And we can already do that as humans. If you can do that, you can learn the code, you can learn the stuff, you can learn the skills. Right? We just need someone to show us, to take us forward. And actually that becomes an industry opportunity as well. The industry of teaching people what they need to survive the future is the industry we should be building right now. Building an infrastructure of support to help people have the skills they need for the future. That becomes an industry. An industry for freelancers, everyone goes, the gig economy is bad. And there are exploitative versions of it, like, Uber drivers and so on. I mean, they're just placeholders for robots. Let's be honest about it, right? Let's be honest. And I get that. I speak to Uber drivers and they say, look, I know this isn't permanent, but it suits me now. And there's some positives, but it's not the gig economy that I envisage. The gig economy that I envisage is people with high, unique skills getting paid good quality wages or freelance fees. And then there's this whole thing where everyone says, but it's not the same as the benefits you get as an employee. Well, why don't we make that an industry? Why wouldn't it be amazing to say, I'm going to give 5% of my money to this freelancers, kind of like a quasi-union, and they pay for my sick leave, my annual leave, they organise my superannuation. That's what unions should be doing. Unions should be saying, we're going to look after all the freelance workers around the world and help them with their negotiating their rates, the skills that they've got, superannuation, all of that kind of stuff, right? This is the thinking we need. We can build industries around supporting the new world that's emerging, and straight away we're going to help people transition as part of the industries we build. So that's the kind of thinking.
Wow. That's a fascinating. It is funny the difference in between even when we were kids to when we're not even grandparents is going to be the world is going to be so different, yeah.
It's a positive outlook, though.
It is, mate. But you've got to be positive. It's a choice, right? It's a choice, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a great way to look at it.
And I think we're at the bleeding edge of this, right? Podcasting is a thing, and us building it. You've probably got a lot of listeners that are who knows where they are.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. The same with a lot of people who read my books around. There's no way I could find these people before.
Yeah, I mentioned it in the last show. My theory was always that somehow we try and find a way that people just work less. Same amount of jobs spread across. You know what I mean? If half the jobs get replaced, then because I think we work too much, I'd love to see people working 25. We
work too much on things that don't interest us.
Yeah, that's right.
Or things that don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of work being done, especially in large corporations.
I love working if it's something I'm into or it's something that's going to actually
doesn't even feel like work, does it?
Yeah, 100%.
When you're doing something that's cool, like in some ways, this is my work today, right? I'm coming here, have a chat, and I'll use this and I'll push it out, and that'll help me sell books or do whatever. Does this feel like work?
No, that's right. That's right.
But in corporations, what we do is we get people doing a lot of busy stuff. Yeah. Right? It's not really work. It's just busy stuff. So you think that we should spread the jobs around?
Well, I use the
so help me distill this thought, and then I'll see what I
I use the example. So say we've got 120 hours of work split across 3 employees at the moment, and then by artificial intelligence and automation, that's 60 hours get taken away, 50%, So effectively, people think of it, I think at the moment, the doomsayers and so forth, as in, 1.5 people are going to lose their jobs, aren't they? One person's going to go to part-time, one person's going to lose their job. That's how you kind of think of it. I think that we have to come up with some sort of universal basic income where people, it's like, yeah, cool, all right, there's X amount still coming in the economy. There's going to be a huge amount of tax that's going to be spread across siphoned off to those people in a universal basic income, and those people will work 20 hours a week rather than 40 hours a week. Because realistically, even if your work is passionate, you're passionate, you love what you're doing, 40 hours, 50 hours, what people are working, that's still a lot.
Still too much.
You know what I mean? That's still too much. So me, I'll be super happy and passionate to work on anything to do with Adventure Fit for 20, 25, 30 hours a week, easy.
Yeah.
Like once it starts to get above that, I still think we're working too much, even if it is your passion, you know?
Yeah.
Because you have to have things outside of work and you have your family and friends.
You need
know?
balance.
Yeah, you know, yeah. So
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what I've always been really optimistic on universal basic income, on artificial intelligence replacing our jobs. And for that reason, I was like, okay, cool. But it depends if the corporations are able to be enforced and not be greedy and not. I don't know if we're there yet. You know what I mean?
A lot of people are greedy. Well,
Yeah.
greed and fear are the same thing, right? The only reason people are greedy is because they're scared, right? And we're the first few generations to have excess food in the history of our entire species. It's never happened. Like a fridge full of food. Like my dad tells the stories of the 40s in Australia where they got meat once a week and they had a little thing called a meat safe where you put the meat and that was a rare moment. And
Meat safe.
Meat safe.
Meat safe. It was like a no one had electricity until the 60s, right? And just the fact that we've got fridges full of food, like that's so rare. And so we haven't really coped with the fact that we don't need more, and people who accumulate money are just the scaredest people and the greediest, or they just want to be the top of some sort of a hierarchy. But we really don't need it, right?
No.
And so that greed thing is really part of fear. People who are scared that they won't have enough to live with are generally greedier.
Yeah.
It's fear and greed are the same thing, right? But greed is the reaction to fear.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So you're scared you won't have enough, so you react by being greedy and having more because you want to make sure that you survive, because that's our strongest instinct is survival.
Yeah.
So we're not there yet. But working too many hours is, for me, this is interesting, right? And it's especially interesting now. When I worked in corporations in work that I didn't enjoy that much, I did have one job in advertising for a while that I liked, but most of the jobs I had I really didn't like. I did valet parking when I was at uni or something, and that was fun.
That'd be interesting,
That was
driving different
interesting,
cars.
man. You drive in different
Meeting
cars
people.
and you get Ferraris and Porsches and everything. It was interesting. So I actually, for me, right, if I actually feel like I'm always working, but I'm never working. Like when I'm playing with my kids or going somewhere, I'm noticing things that I can bring back into my work because I'm genuinely interested in the type of stuff that I really pay attention and notice stuff.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm always at work. And in a way, I'm sort of never at work because what I do, I enjoy.
Well, you're in a great place.
Yeah, and
You're in
that's
a great
rare.
place,
And I know
right?
that's kind of
too.
rare.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like last night I was writing a blog post till 11 p.m.
Yeah, 'cause
I
it was fun.
I was just
You were
I was
interested
just doing it. I was just
yeah.
writing it. I was writing about nostalgia and how nostalgia becomes a new business we can build because you can sell old ideas online that went away. You
Kind of
bring
like the
them
niche
back.
stuff that you're talking about. Like you could never do it in a brick and mortar place, but now you can do it
that's
online.
super niche, right? Yeah, like I bought an old school BMX, an 80s BMX, spent 3 times as much as they cost when I was growing up, but I love it and I ride it everywhere. But so I don't know if I am really onto the idea of splitting up the work, because I actually reckon new things will appear. I don't think we'll ever run out of things to do, and the reason I don't think we'll ever run out of new things to do is because most of the things we already do are made up. They're made up. Like there's about 4 essential things. There's like health, somewhere to sleep, warm house and food. Everything else is made up. That hat's made up.
Yeah.
There's no sun in here.
No.
It's made up. The beard, that's made up. Like everything is made up. Like I don't need this Moleskine notepad.
No.
It's just $40 worth of made up shit. Right? I just need a piece of paper. Like this t-shirt with this print on it, this is made up. When I say it's made up, it's non-essential. We live in a non-essential economy.
Definitely.
So many things are not essential. And I don't think that the jobs will ever disappear. I really don't.
No.
Because the money's still there, and because the money's still there, someone will spend that money on something else they didn't need. Now, I do think there'll be less stuff and more activities and ideas and experiences.
Yeah.
Right? And I actually think that the most premium thing you'll be able to buy in the future will be the things that you're buying because a human is doing it. So music's a really informative example. Right now, concerts used to be the sample to sell the CD. Now the music is given away for free to sample the concert that you pay for.
The experience.
And the experience is that the human was doing it. Right? And robotics are about perfection and efficiency. Efficiency is for robots. Experiences are for humans. Now, if the robots get as smart as people think, and this is where we'll get a bit Star Trek on the future of stuff, if robots get as smart as people think they will, right? I mean, have emotional intelligence, did you know they're going to want annual leave and sick days, and they're going to make friends with us, and if they're really smart and emotional, they'll help us, and they'll create new industries, and they'll go on their holidays. there's going to be planes with robots on them going on holidays, sitting next to you.
I feel like there already are sometimes.
No, but this is the type of thinking. So what people do is they think about robots getting so smart that they'll just encapsulate everything the human does and just take over. Well, if they get as smart as you say that, they're going to be smarter than us. And true smarts, I think emotional well-being and socialization is the top of the hierarchy of human intelligence. If the robots get there, they actually might teach us to be more human. No one's ever said that.
No.
You know why? Because we have a dystopian view of what the future looks like based on movies and blowing shit up.
Definitely.
We can stay? Oh, cool. I actually...
Would have been awkward carrying all of this out there right now.
I have a quite a utopian view of the whole thing. I think all the problems that we have, if robots can think for themselves, even if they're not conscious, even if they can't think for themselves, if the computing power follows Moore's law even slightly once they get past the singularity and they're as smart as us, then surely they're going to be able to figure out all of our problems.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you believe that?
Yeah, well, not all of them, because they'll probably create some problems of their own.
But if you say, for example, poverty, even philosophical problems, racism, climate change, like all these problems that we have, if we were smart enough, I believe that there's a way to solve everything. I believe that there's a way that we could, if our propaganda, if the words we spoke were strong enough that we could quell all races, I think there'd be a way to do it. We're not anywhere near... We can't fathom what that would be.
Here's the weird thing is that most of those things that you've mentioned, we already know how to solve. Like, for example, racism, we know how to solve. And I imagine that all of us sitting here...
But to implement,
to implement. Yeah. But the point is that the solutions are present. They're just not well distributed. And even when there is possibilities on how to solve that, people don't want to.
Yeah.
Because it's not about possibility. It's actually about desire. So the thing that the robots need to work out is the desire to make people who... I think those who espouse the virtues of fossil fuels are the financial beneficiaries of it and just don't care. They know that climate change is real and it's going to have consequences. People know that racism has massive consequences. They just don't want to not be racist.
Yeah.
Right. So that stuff's there. But you're right. If AI gets as smart, it should be able to help us find ways to socially
bond everyone together.
Yeah, bond everyone together. That's a great way of putting it. So I think that's. I'm a utopian too. I think that's possible. But we were saying before, I don't think the jobs will go away. I just think there'll just be more and more things that we do and need, and we'll just graduate from other tasks. It's almost like your task list. Have you ever finished everything on your task and go, I've got nothing to do? There's always something you can do.
Definitely not.
That's what people don't
time.
understand, right?
That's right?
So if AI takes some things off your task list, like sharpening pencils, I have to go sharpen my pencils. At some point, someone had to go and sharpen pencils. That's gone. Because the machine did that, or you've got a pen, or you got a whatever. There's things already that we used to do that we've forgotten about just 10 or 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
Got to go down and post the letters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting
because those things drop off and new things come on. So there's this task list that moves like this. Like, imagine this is time.
It's like that money example that I used. Yeah. Where you'll fill your time with things like you would spend your money that you have.
That's exactly what happens. It's like it always feels. There's actually a thing called Parkinson's law.
That's what it is.
It's Parkinson's
That's the money
law.
thing that I was talking about. Parkinson's law.
So Parkinson's law is that
Perfect
things
example,
fill in to fill the void of the availability.
Yes, that's
it's
right.
with money, with time, with tasks.
Yes. I wish I was smart enough to remember the Parkinson's law part, because now he's claimed that whole thing.
It's not mine, it's Parkinson's. All the things that I talk about are ideas, and this is interesting. All the things that I speak about are ideas that are out there. What I do is just accumulate the pieces and put them together and try and go, here, I've made this recipe of the future. Like, I didn't think of...
It'd be interesting to see if people do have all this spare time, how they use it and what they do with it. Because I've got a lot of spare time at the moment because I've started my own business and I'm not amazingly busy. I live in a log cabin in the sand dunes. I'm now finding... But the thing is...
in the sand dunes.
The thing is, though, like, I have a lot of spare time. Sorry?
Bit of sand in your beard there, Sarah.
Oh, man, there is sand. You go into every shower in our house and it's full of sand. Like, I've got to get an outdoor shower put on. It's like sand in everything. The whole house is full of it.
Do you walk out of the dunes with your board?
Yeah, I literally put my wetsuit on in my lounge room.
I love that.
But the thing is, like, I don't have heating in the house, so it's like when I have a lot of spare time, like,
Chop wood.
I chop wood.
Chop
Man,
wood,
it's
carry
like,
water.
It's one of the best things. Like, it's one of the most self-rewarding things,
Oh, it's
probably
wonderful.
because
I grew up on a farm and I used to chop it. I used to love doing
well, it's
it.
probably something
Yeah, we
we've
used to
done
chop
as
wood
humans
on our
for
property.
make fire. You know, I think
Yeah.
you said it earlier. Make fire, get water. What were the basic things?
Yeah,
you know,
so
and
it's
it's
like heating your house,
Yeah.
feeding yourself, having somewhere to live. Like
Exactly.
everything is unnecessary. Like everything is made up in this economy. We just made it up.
it
Yeah.
totally
It's like-
is, man.
And we just make up new things, and we just make up new things, and some things drop out and get automated, and we just make up new things.
Well, it'd be funny to see what people make up or what they want
it'll be
to what they
more
want to
artistic.
fill their time.
Yeah, I
with.
reckon-
Yeah,
I reckon in the
definitely.
future there's going to be more and more emotional connection, artistic connection. Like, and there's a great musician who used to work with David Byrne of Talking Heads. I was trying to think of his name. Forget his name. But he said that art is everything you don't have to do. Now, that's the most beautiful definition of art. What is art? It's anything you don't have to do.
True.
That's brilliant, right? And he says that that's the future of work. Brian Eno, it is. Brian Eno. God, I've
Yeah.
got it back. Brian Eno. And he's like a musician, artist, whatever. And he says, look around you. There's so much art. Art are the things we don't have to do. And they're the things that get humans excited, right? And the more we can outsource labour and mundane things and repetitive tasks, the more art we can do.
Oh,
Like and art in life. You know, art is how someone treats you when they go off script, when you deal with them at a company on the phone or when you interact with them face to face. You know, all the co-working spaces I go to, I reckon the people at the front desks are artists. Because they come in, you know, do you want you want to have a game of Galaga on the video machine there? Do you want to
They're putting together an
kombucha? Do you want a
experience for you.
kombucha? Right, they're putting together an experience like, oh, Doc, you know, I'm like, I'm after Doc. Oh, that's not his real. I'm like, really? And they're like, even the email's Doc, right? And so that's art.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, but you chose to, and that made the experience better. And then the money flows to where the positive things are.
yeah. I think in a utopian, even in a good result, even in a not bad result, you know, I think the future is going to be freaking. Don't know why I said freaking. I never say freaking, but
You
it's
didn't
going
wanna
to be.
swear.
It's going to be amazing because
It is.
people will. There'll be more passion. People will be living there, you know, because that's
True.
one of the biggest things that cripples
True.
people. You know, mental health wise, why we have all these people that are depressed and sad or whatever, it's because they fucking hate what they do for
I
the
reckon that's the
majority
biggest.
of their
I reckon
life.
that's the biggest cause.
Yeah.
It cripples
The
me
majority
to
of their
see
life.
people that don't have passion.
Yeah.
I've lived with people that have no passion, and it is just crippling to watch.
Yeah.
Like watching it getting sucked out of someone. It's
But
just
yeah,
like they just don't have it in them
It's
anymore.
an interesting one too, though, like passion and jobs. Like a lot of people say, do something that you're passionate about. And I like writing and thinking and economics and tech and all of that. But I'm not nearly as passionate about that as I am some other things like footy and surfing.
Yeah.
But I'm not stupid enough to think I can make a living out of those things.
Yeah.
No, that's it.
So I like to learn from my passion and enjoy it and free time up
Keep
for
it a passion.
But yeah, that's right. But I also like to go, well, if I'm good at something, it's easy to get passionate-ish
Yeah.
about it. But
Yeah.
I'm not really chasing my passion. I just do something that's enjoyable.
Yes.
And I reckon there's maybe a little bit of a thing there that's interesting because to say go and chase your passion, I feel like maybe it's a bit utopian, but to do something you enjoy is cool because I reckon
Yeah.
there's something that's of economic or intellectual
Yeah.
value that most of us can be reasonably good at if you can find it.
It's more realistic too.
Yeah, and realism, you've got to have some realism in there, you know.
For sure. A true utopia is a science fiction movie. You know,
Yeah,
we're never
yeah.
going to have a true utopia.
Don't
you
think
know?
so.
So no, I totally agree.
Yep.
So, Steve, let me ask you this. This is a very, very big, broad, ridiculous question. But you just used the example before of 300 years ago in the past. You know, imagine, you know, talking about the internet or, you know, I can't remember the example you used. What does the world in 300 years look like?
Well, it's a big
What
question.
could it look like?
Can I? Okay, there's only two answers.
Do
All right,
whatever
here's
you
what I
like.
think. If
You can
we're-
have two answers.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Of course.
In fact, have three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Three, one for each year. Okay. I think that our probability as surviving at a species is really, really low.
Ooh.
Super low.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not because of us. It's not at a species level that I reason that that's low. It's actually a rogue cell. And I think that right now the biggest danger in the world isn't climate change. I actually think it's nuclear war. And the reason I think it's nuclear war is that information exchanges and that's just information on how to build a bomb and the possibility to do it, and rogue actors who could get their hands on some of this stuff. The probability is actually higher than it's ever been, higher than during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Because what you have is someone who's potentially, so I'll give a good version. So there's a fork in the road. This is the negative one, right?
Yeah.
We'll finish with the positive. The probability of rogue actors who the equivalent of what we saw at September 11 don't care is really, really high. A lot of people don't know this, but there's radiation measures in the sky in all of the democracies that have nuclear weapons. If radiation goes beyond a certain level, then they know they've had a nuclear attack, and it automatically sends off responding nuclear bombs. So that's
Wow.
like a real risk. That's the biggest
terrifying.
risk, right? And terrorism at a micro level is not is not anything to worry about. We should be worried about women getting bashed up by horrible partners and road trauma and these things. They're the real problems we should be worrying about. But what we do need to do is to have less tyrannical and autocratic democracies like America telling people how to behave and live and let live, and get rid of the racism problem. That's the number one problem in the world, is racism and religion. Because racism and religion cause all of these things. And I'll say it to the listeners straight up. I'm into faith, I believe in God, but I'm not into religion.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep, 100%.
Right, and God is science and life and all of that, but I do not sign up. I was brought up
Would
as
you
a
say
Catholic.
it's more for the lack of a better term, you're spiritual, but
Spiritual,
you're
yep, spiritual faith, believe in some sort of
higher power,
whether that's nature or science or the universe or the multiverse.
Well, something fucking happened that we're here and we don't know about.
Right,
So
100%. And even if there is a universe, what's on the outside of that, and what's on the outside
That's
of that,
exactly
and what's
how
on
I
the
think.
outside of that, right?
What put the Big Bang there? What put the
exactly.
pinhead there?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so I think that racism and nationalism are problems that need to be solved. And when I say nationalism, nations didn't exist. I think we made them, and I think we need to have a global economy. If I could do one thing in the world, two things. First thing I would do is I would outlaw lobbying, because that's the most dangerous thing in the world, because that's what causes climate change, is lobbying. Because in America they have this idea that dollars equal free speech. That's actually passed in their law. Dollars equal free speech.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
So the idea that free speech is I'm not sure what amendment is. One of the amendments is free speech. Is part of their doctrine, and they passed a law to say that money is free speech. Therefore, you can buy opinion, otherwise known as lobbying. This is a law in America.
Wow. That's
money
ridiculous.
is free speech, right? Which is crazy. How can you have the word free associated with money? It doesn't make any
crazy.
sense, right? So get rid of lobbying is the first thing. The next one is get rid of governments and boundaries and countries. Imagine this. Anyone can travel anywhere in the world.
Can I jump in for 1 second?
Yes.
So I've always said that
Because all the problems will go away if you do that.
If I
Because it will
have
naturally find
I
its
believe
level
that
like
too.
water.
I've always said if in 30 years' time I'm so successful that I make a foundation, which this is just hypothetical. I'm not successful. I'm just saying if I was one of those
success
guys,
is personally defined. So this is
successful
success.
enough to successful enough to have people with the Shane Warne
Let's
Foundation.
use the word
and,
powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's
powerful.
better than success. Success and power aren't the same thing.
Yeah,
so let's use the
So
word
if I'm
powerful.
powerful enough
definitely better.
I'm powerful enough to have a foundation that can influence something in the world, it would be to eradicate fucking borders.
Eradicate all
For
borders in the world.
sure.
No such thing as Australia. No such thing as America. No such thing as anyone. There's an airport. Hop on whatever plane you want. Go anywhere you want. Live anywhere you want. Have one global currency.
That's right.
Because then
You
you'll
know-
bring people out of poverty straight away because you're not working for
Yeah.
Kenyan dollars or
I'll
whatever.
tell you-
It's
I'll tell you
earning
why.
Global dollars.
I'll tell you
That
when
would
I-
equalise. You know what? Australia wouldn't be overcrowded because all of a sudden, all of the resources that are misused in Africa start to get used properly and in Asia and whatever. And you'll get people go to these areas and it'll all even out. It'll be chaos for 30 or 40 years, but that'll be fun.
It'd be chaos. It'd be worth it.
It would be
It'd
fun.
be chaos
It
that would be
so
worth it.
worth it on the other side.
I'll tell you what.
Get rid of borders. Number one problem.
I'll tell you what made me think this was when I was walking Everest Base Camp, and for the probably 100th time, I passed a child who was 14 years old carrying. They get paid by weight. These kids that aren't educated, if you're not educated, you walk. If you're a Sherpa, you walk up and down Everest Base Camp trek all day, every day for the rest of your life, carrying stuff, and it's by weight. So I walked past a 14-year-old kid carrying 80 kilos fucking timber on his back or
What a
whatever.
boss.
And I was
His
like, my
boss
heart
behaviour.
sank.
Yeah.
My heart sank. I was like, what the fuck? I looked at it and I'm like, Rabi, what is this? And so Rabi's my guy from Nepal, and he started educating me on how it works over there, if you're not educated, so on and so forth. And then he started telling me about this on a separate topic. He started telling me about how he's just become an American citizen because he married an American woman. And I said, "Oh, that must be sad for you to be able to have to hand over your Nepali passport." And he goes, "It's not sad at all." He goes, "Where's Nepalis cannot go to 70% of the world. We're not allowed in." And I was like, "So you're telling me that you're born on this side of this imaginary fucking line, and for some reason, because some government and some guys that you have nothing to do with, you're not allowed to travel the earth.
Meanwhile, his country
the world
is
that we live in, that we share. You know, it's the biggest fucking crock of shit.
Fences. I hate the idea of a fence.
Yeah, but
No, like a fence.
Think about the
Put up
amount
a
of people.
fence.
Yeah,
No, we're going.
It is
fuck
ridiculous.
Borders, fuck this. Fuck fences.
No, seriously, fences are a terrible idea. Like fences, they haven't been around that long. Like kings in England went, yeah, we're putting this thing up.
Well, you
called
don't
a
know your
fence.
neighbours now that we have fences, do we? You
It's
don't.
true.
It
It's
kills
true.
community.
It's true. It does kill
Yeah.
it. Fences are really bad.
they are. Have you been to Europe?
Yeah.
They hardly have them anywhere. It's
Yeah, yeah.
Well, when you're in the country like Sweden and in Scandinavia,
Yeah.
like you go to Norway and you do not see a fence.
Fuck
And you
fences,
come to
man.
You come to Australia
fences.
and it's like it was one thing I really noticed when I was
Really?
over there. And they have a thing called every man's law, where it's like you can walk through anyone's property, you can camp on the property, but you can't leave trash. So it's like if I have the right to walk on your property if I'm traveling.
The idea of ownership
which is like
is a
it's
very,
like,
very weird idea.
You can't stand on someone's piece of land with like in the States
Well,
you
the
get
tragedy
shot.
of the
It's-
commons
Yeah.
is well documented. The
It's
whole idea that you
ridiculous.
had share farming and you did a certain way and the whole free rider problem and all of that stuff. But, I would outlaw lobbying, outlaw nation states because then you'd solve real problems and you'd get a natural flow of resources and people which would solve all of the problems that we have. Now, utopian view. In the next few years, in the next 10 years, we're going to be off fossil fuels. We're going to be energy neutral within 20 years. If we can get there, there's a real risk with the climate change. Let's imagine we overcome it. In any case, as oceans rise, we should be putting that water into places like the middle of Australia with big pipelines and turn that into a green,
An
80% of
oasis.
Australia, a green
Yeah.
oasis. Take the excess water, put it there. I mean, this is just an engineering problem. The
Can be
possibilities
solved,
are there.
yeah.
In 300 years, I don't think we'll be a multiplanetary species. I really don't.
I don't think so
I don't
either.
think so.
I don't think we ever will
and
be.
I'm really
Not even Mars.
anti.
Not even just over to Mars for a
okay,
couple
so
of
I'm
days.
going to give you what you probably don't expect because everyone lauds Elon Musk and all of these guys trying to make us a multiplanetary species. I think it's a big wank for billionaires to build spaceships that no one will be able to afford to go to a species when there's a whole lot of problems we need to fix here first. That's what I think.
And we're never going to survive anywhere other than the Earth, light, water, and magnetism. We can't.
If you take the Michikaku, we could potentially change the atmosphere and
Yeah.
all of those things.
Terraform it. But it's thousands, hundreds of thousands of years to
Right, here's what I want to
do
do.
that.
Like, the one thing that's the irony is that I understand that the reason we're sitting here with these devices and doing all this is because of the space race. I get it. Like, I get that. And I'm not saying that that there wouldn't be discoveries with this space race going to Mars, but I actually don't like it. I think it's a misallocation of resources. Elon
I
Musk,
agree.
on the one hand, there is trying to get everyone in electric cars, and every time he puts one of his space rockets up, it's the equivalent of 600,000 fossil fuel cars driving around for 5 years or something. Right, so that's not the exact stat I
Yeah,
made it
I
up,
know,
but it's
but-
kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
When you
so
think about it, that
there
burns a shit
doesn't
ton
make
of fuel.
sense, right? So what we're getting there is a little bit of Kool-Aid, and we need to have the sentience of mind to delineate that. So I think that in the future we'll be energy neutral. We will learn to harness the power of the sun and water and wind. I think that people will work from anywhere. Manufacturing will be gone because we'll have molecular nanobot printers where we can make anything that we've ever seen or imagined just by putting the elements into a replicator type
Yeah.
nanobot printer.
Wow.
We'll have all the food we need, all the energy we need, everything we need. And I think that if we survive and don't have the nuclear apocalypse, which is a very, very low probability, I think we're going to have all the food, all the resources, everything everyone in the world absolutely needs for free. And we'll be focused on art and everything 300 years from now. I actually think it'll be as close to utopia as you could ever find. That if we can get through the next 20 years. It's almost like the movie Speed. We've just got to get over that. The bus has got to get over that little climate change, nationalisations, racism. If we can just get over that, then we're going to have all the energy, all the food, produce everything you want to need with 3D printers. Because information is something physical. The one thing we need to protect in the interim between now and then is data monopolists like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and we need to regulate against those, and we need to make sure that we don't hand over our data and data actually becomes a copyrighted thing that people who create it own it. Because that's got all of these implications that wide bearing. To me, data and privacy and security is the workplace health and safety and climate change of the digital age. So we just got to those things. But the future is going to be energy neutral, any product you ever wanted, living where you want to live, doing what you want to do.
That's
And that's not 300 years, that's 50 years away.
Yeah. That's a future
And it's
I
awesome.
would like to be a
that is
part
the
of.
future I want to be part of, absolutely. So that's why you got to stay fit, man. You want to be part of it. Don't be the person who eats hamburgers and whatever and doesn't stay. Keep your mind and your body healthy so you can live through this.
Yeah,
This
see the good times.
Dude, this is ridiculous. We're going to be Star Trek level of like amazingness because our ability is actually accelerating. It's not just increasing, it's accelerating because what happens with computers and machine learning is that the machine then helps you find the next thing quicker because that machine's previous quicker than the previous one, everything's getting quicker and quicker and quicker. It's actually speeding up. It's not just accelerating, it's the pace of change is actually speeding up. The acceleration is accelerating, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yep. That's fascinating. We need to get you out of here, Steve. One thing I wanted to say, that just to your nationalism point and so on and so forth and racism, mainly nationalism and racism, tell you the one thing that I think would fix that tomorrow if it was to happen.
What?
We discover intelligent life elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or we have an asteroid coming Armageddon style that we have to fucking destroy or it will destroy us.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes us. We're all us.
Yeah.
It's like they say
Got to
with
unify to try and overcome.
Yes.
For
I
sure.
agree with you 100%.
9/11, they say they say that people are happiest in war times because people, everything, race, status, class,
All goes out the window.
Caste, all
People
goes
are
out the
just
window.
trying to survive.
And people are
You need,
people.
just trying to survive.
it's almost like you need a bigger enemy. And people from New South Wales will understand this with rugby league when it comes to state of origin. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter if you go for the Parramatta Eels or the.
It's exactly right.
It's like bang.
Then we're the Kangaroos or the Wallabies.
Yeah,
when we're
right,
Australia, but
exactly.
fuck the Kiwis, then you love those guys that play for Queensland. So it's just that next level that we don't have to make us us.
We need that. We need
you know?
a way to like be on the same team, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to stop being, whatever race we are and start being human, right?
Yeah.
That is 100%.
We need an external them.
I was
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
imagine this though. But this would remove humanity a little bit. But imagine if you had some sort of like a contact lens where you couldn't see someone's race or whatever. But then again, you remove individuality. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of that Black Mirror episode.
Yes, the opposite where you couldn't see anyone. You just saw the fuzzy things.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's a good show, that Black
Yeah.
Mirror.
It's
This
good,
is the
isn't it?
second time it's
Crazy.
been referenced today,
Yeah.
and
You
I have
love
no
it.
If you
idea.
haven't seen Black Mirror, dude,
You would
your
love
whole
it,
weekend
bro.
is Black Mirror now. Oh, mate, it is.
You don't have a TV,
the
do you?
I don't have a
smartest-
TV.
You don't need a TV. Do you have it? Wait a minute, you do have a TV. Have you got a phone?
Yeah.
So this is a TV.
Yeah.
Definitions we hold so closely to our heart do not hold us in good stead. Is this a TV? Yes.
I
But
guess so.
expand your definition.
Well, it's not a phone. It makes calls, but we can stop
okay,
calling. We can
I
stop
do have
calling
a TV.
phones.
I'd say I'm anti-TV. That's rather than I don't have a TV.
I'm not
That's how I put it.
anti-TV. I'm pro being decisive on what you invest your time in.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good one. Let's leave it there, Steve, can we throw a couple of quick rapid fire questions out before we go?
Easy. Let's go.
So you can just ask your one if you want.
Okay.
Have you got another couple?
Yeah, no.
Because this is Tommy's second co-hosting show. He's always been one of our favourite guests. But
Nice.
my original guest,
I love that,
co-host.
mate. You've made yourself onto
Yeah,
that. I love
yeah.
that.
Moving up.
It's like,
Moving up.
yeah.
Slowly.
Special guest star that then just became part of the
Yeah,
panel.
that's right. He's looking for my fucking seat next, so I'm going to be looking over my shoulder. He's looking for the hosting spot. But no, so my question, I've got three questions, and
Well, can I go first?
Yeah.
Then you go, because then I've got time to think about a second
yeah,
one.
do that.
Okay.
I love that because
So-
you guys go.
We're working it out on the fly here. This is our second episode.
AI doesn't do that. Doesn't go. You know the thing and the one because AI can't go. You know the thing and the can't understand it.
If you're on a deserted island and you had three things to take, what would they be?
Wife and two children.
all right, well, let's. That's
I like that. That's a loving man's answer.
Yeah, for sure. What if they
I
were?
like
What if
that.
they were? What if they weren't allowed to be living
Yeah.
people?
Okay, so
Let's say
my family are with me now. I can
objects.
take
Yeah,
three
say your
things.
family.
Okay,
Inanimate objects.
surfboard, Is it a tropical island? Because I'm just deciding
no,
whether
Yeah,
or
no,
not I
you
need
can
to-
be on tropical.
No,
Okay,
you
so I
don't
don't need my
know. You don't know.
wetsuit,
You
so I
got
don't
to
need my
risk it.
wetsuit.
Is the risk worth it?
Yeah, true.
There might not be any waves.
Yeah, I'll definitely take my surfboard because
Yeah.
I'll just
Okay.
paddle on
Just
it
in
anyway,
case,
and
it's
it's an
worth the
island.
risk.
Oh no, good for paddle. Just
Yeah.
keep fit.
Surfboard. Can I take my library?
You can take, it will book. What would the book be? Say one book. What would the book be?
Hey, that's my fucking question.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. We're just
Okay.
gonna.
Library's good. No, library's good because
Library.
it's a tablet.
Yeah, no, take your library.
Technology,
Library.
you got your tablet, you got Kindle.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, but I wouldn't have any connectivity with that.
Oh, yeah,
That's
true.
why I said
Nah, but
library.
you've got
That's
a
why I
li-
went
you've got a-
analog.
yeah.
A
We'll
library.
say
So it's a
library.
box of all
Library's
my
good.
books. I've got a
Yeah.
library, so I'll
Yeah.
take my library
Yeah.
and an umbrella.
Interesting. You want to build one?
Hey?
You could build one.
No, I think it'd be in the transitional phase of building the house and everything in the tropical rainstorms. The umbrella would be
beneficial.
Yeah, it'd be
quite a
fucking
lot of
Beneficial
utility.
to the skin, for sure.
Umbrella.
For sure.
That's a classic. All right, I'll start my questions off. So my first one is favourite travel destination on the planet that you've been and you just love.
I want to have two. Culturally, it's Italy. Mm-hmm. And when I went surfing in the Maldives, that was just paradise. Like
Yeah.
everything I've ever seen in a surfing magazine. I had two. I cheated.
Nah, it's
but
fine.
Italy
You
was
make the
like
rules, mate.
food, culture, all
Go
of
for
that.
it.
And because I'm half Italian, I've
Yeah.
really got that special link to it. And then the thing that I really enjoy in life is like just that surfing and that it's something you see on the TV. It's
Yeah.
everything like that. Well, the
Yeah.
Maldives was like that. So they were the two.
Yeah.
I've got more. It's my turn now.
Go.
What's your favourite dish to cook?
I like homemade pizza.
Good answer.
Homemade pizza, just with the kids, and they.
Do you have a pizza oven?
No, I don't have a pizza oven. Just got an old school normal oven. But just seeing the kids doing
Yeah.
their own stuff, and we actually, as my TED talk was about that. I grew a full end-to-end pizza with my daughter, where we did everything wheat, the whole lot, right through 7 months.
That's awesome.
Like end-to-end pizza. That's what my TED talk was about. How you can learn about automation, technology, economics, and everything through pizza.
Wow. That's cool. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Oh,
It's the last
fantastic.
bit in there.
My next one is dream travel destination. So a place you haven't been, top of your bucket list.
I think the Northern Lights in Scandinavia.
Second answer in a row.
Yeah.
Iceland. Northern
Yeah.
Lights.
Yeah, and to stay in that ice hotel.
Yeah.
That's really
That'd be
cool.
Sick. That'd be sick. I
I'd
was in
love that.
Iceland last year.
And I didn't even know
Epic.
about that. I knew about it, but it was not really a thing until my wife just kept bringing it up and showing the pictures of it. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool.
It would
Yeah.
be very cool.
Yeah. I saw it last year.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I saw it really good, and then my guys that were over there on the next trip, they said that it was 10 orders of magnitude better. They were like, one of the guys came back and he goes, man, Tommy, who used to be my co-host, he's been living in Bali now. He thanked me after seeing the Northern Lights. He goes, hey, mate, I need to really thank you for putting me on that trip, allowing me to staff it. And I was like, yeah, bro, don't worry about it. And he's like, no, I really need to thank you. I'm like, yeah, it's fucking sweet, mate. And he goes, no, I don't think you understand. He goes, we laid down on our backs and stared up at the sky for 30 or 40 minutes while greens, purples, and all these different colours, which is a 10 out of 10 Aurora-wise when you
yeah.
get multiple colours. He goes, I'm quite certain that I'll never see anything as incredible that for the rest of
that's
my life.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
I'm going to save that one.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Save
definitely
that
want
one.
to do that with my kid.
Yeah.
That'd be really something.
With kids would be fantastic because it would be mind melting to a child.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
It would,
Honestly,
it would,
with
wouldn't
their
it?
creativity.
Because
Yeah.
kids
Oh.
just love stuff that we
Yeah.
take for granted, don't they? Go,
100%.
wow, look
They
at
see
that.
the
They're like,
wonder.
they
They have no
see the
censor.
wonder,
See
don't
the
They
they?
have
wonder.
no
Yeah.
filter.
Yeah.
They're uncorrupted. It's just
Yeah, uncorrupted.
100%.
Kids are rad.
yeah.
Yeah. You got another
I
one?
got another one. You might. Okay. Your book. What's the one lesson you've learned that's like the most important lesson you've learned in life that school never taught you?
Wow, that's
You
a
were
good
born
question.
an entrepreneur and school kicked it out of you on purpose. You were born that way. All the entrepreneurial skills you've got, and they're deep down inside your gut. You got to find them again.
I agree 100%.
I read a funny article the other day called "Why A grade students work for C grade students." It was kind of
Oh, what's that about?
it's about
I get that,
the rebellious
totally.
ones.
That's great.
'Cause I got expelled from school twice.
No
And I-
way.
Yeah, and I run two
This boy down on the
three
peninsula
three
just get-
businesses. Yeah,
I
and
got twice too.
Did you really?
Yeah. We both got expelled from the same school once.
I was in trouble a lot, but I never really got to that level.
yeah, but it's basically about the people that learn in the system are the A grade students. They are the ones that are, they're the sheep that are programmed to do as we say, act this way, do this, follow this. And then the C grade students are the ones that are like, nah, fuck that. I'm going to go fucking tell fart jokes with my mates. I'm not coming to class.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to, and they're the ones that stand up against the system and so forth. And they're the ones that normally go out and have the balls or haven't been programmed in the way that holds them back. And they're the ones that have the more entrepreneurial flair. And then they go out and hire the A grade students.
I see that.
I buy that 100%.
Yeah, totally.
It was a really interesting
that's
article.
straight up. That's straight up. Look, it's like a probability game. One of the things that I'm fascinated with is probability. I'm fascinated with probability, and I actually live my entire life around probability. Like even some of the answers I gave you were probability answers, right? On the, like low probability, super high risk with the nuclear thing, right?
Yeah.
People are really bad at assessing probability, and the probability of doing well in life by being an A grade student is really, really high.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll be above average, but you'll never get stratospheric.
Yeah.
Right, you just can't. Now, for every C grade student that hires A grade students, here's the thing: there's 999 C grade students who don't.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the success bias.
Yeah.
The success bias is you read the story about the startup entrepreneur who failed school, did this, whatever, and then became a success. What you're not reading about is the 999 stories of people who did that and now they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
right, and
fair.
so the system that we give people is one of high probability, but low awesomeness.
Yeah.
And finding that balance between awesomeness and probability is really the art of life. Knowing where you want to live, right? So I could have chased bigger dollars in startups, and I had a couple of startups that did well. But as a freelancer, I get a really, really high living standard with a high probability at the same time, and I had a really high probability of success, more than I would with a startup. I don't make as much money as I would if I had a startup that went really, really big, but I already live an inordinately free, wonderful lifestyle with a high probability of that being maintained in perpetuity. Like when I invest in simple things like property and index funds, which are in there as well, because they've got a high probability of outcome. So I'm really all about understanding probability of success on certain things, and that's why that situation is true.
It's important. It's good.
I do have one final question. Any books that you like to recommend? Can be any sort of written. Whatever.
I got a feeling I know what he's going to say.
Can I have all that?
No, come on.
You've got time to find that
was
after.
the given.
No, look, that doesn't. All right. The book that probably changed my life the most was probably Rich Dad Poor Dad.
It's my father's favourite book.
Look, it's very, very easy. It's a very, very simple read, right?
Yeah.
It's very rudimentary. But it helps you understand. And actually, his second one's probably the best one, which is called the Cash Flow Quadrant. Mm-hmm. I'm going to revise that. It's not Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's the Cash Flow Quadrant. That book there tells you about the economic system, which then tells you about your ability to have enjoyment, emotional, engaging things that you do and passion more than anything else. Mm-hmm. That book is probably... It wasn't that book was the best out of all the ones I've read, but it was the one that led me to explore other things about finance, entrepreneurship, creativity, all of that. Cash Flow Quadrant.
Cool.
And I didn't even buy it. I got it from a library.
Yeah.
It's good.
Robert Kiyosaki. Cash Flow Quadrant.
And I would normally, I've been asked this question a lot and I've never given that book. I don't know why. But something today led me to recommend that one. And if you ask me next week, it might be something different. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. No, for sure.
Like that sounds crazy, doesn't it?
No, but it's understandable.
I think just the things that we talked about, it was really interesting because it really breaks up the different types of work and things that we can do in our life. The Cash Flow Quadrant, it's really interesting. And if you haven't got time to read books, there's some really great really great channels on YouTube that give you a book in 10 minutes where they just summarize it and draw pictures, and it's a great way to get your head around some books.
Like Blinkist stuff. They do
like
that. Steve, mate, that's it. Where can people find you? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, stevesammartino.com. Sign up to my email list. I'll tell you why. Anything that I do that's interesting and cool goes on there. I do one blog post that comes out every Friday morning at 7 a.m. Australian time. And I've got a few thousand people that sign up to that. I do a blog post on something that's interesting. I tell people if you read that every week, you will know everything you need to know about the technology revolution in the future that you need to know. Because I distill it and every week will be a different topic that's relevant. So sign up to that. And you can find me on social, any of the social channels, Twitter, Instagram, not so much Facebook, but Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, just hit me up. If you want to send me a note, stevesammartino.com, you just send me a note there. I answer everyone. I get lots of them every day, and I answer everyone.
Didn't you say these were to be given away to
Yes,
listeners?
let's give them
How are we
away.
going to do that?
I
don't know.
I'm not sure.
Street
I just
Shit
brought
for
them in, man.
listeners,
I just
come on.
went, yo, let's
Cool.
bring them in.
Well, I will. We will in the intro and outro, which I'll record after this. We will find a way to give these to the listeners.
Good answer.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
All right, Steve, mate. Thanks for coming on
Mate,
the show.
thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the
Loving
chat.
it.
That was fantastic.
Mate, it's rocking.
Awesome stuff. And that's a wrap.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.